Hello everyone, this is Hakaym and welcome back to some more World of Warships, and we are taking a look at the Tier 8 USN heavy cruiser, the Baltimore. And as many people know, the Baltimore, especially maybe with me not so much, is a fairly strong cruiser. I've always had issues with her. Now when I was first going up the USN cruiser line, I skipped her essentially. I didn't much care for her, so I just free XP'd my way through her to get to the Moines. So the Baltimore, as it is now at Tier 8, is still a strong cruiser. She's very fragile. There's a couple things I don't much care for her, but she is a strong, heavy USN cruiser, and she can do a lot of work. Now we are playing on Sleeping Giant, and as any Tier 8 captain may know, you're always going to be bottom tier against Tier 10, which is not particularly fun. Now fortunately this is a light Tier 10 battle. There's a Yamato Izumo, Iowa, Tirpitz, Des Moines, Minotaur, Rune, Baltimore, Hipper, Kid, Akazuki, and Asshole. On the enemy team, there's a Kurfürst, Alsace, Musashi, North Carolina, Minotaur, Hindenburg, Neptune, Cleveland, Chapayev, 2 Akazukis, and a Harikaze. I am joined with a couple of my clanmates, No Game and Sweet Potato, and they are obviously in the Akazuki and Kid, respectively. Now we are starting to push towards C, and as many people are probably, especially if you are grinding up the USN cruiser line, are well aware, islands are your very best friends. They are going to be the one thing you're going to be using quite a bit, and you're going to be seeing quite a bit of island cover being really necessary whenever playing. Now we do pop our radar, and that is obviously one benefit of the USN cruisers, is they do have a fairly decent range radar. Now the Baltimore only has a 9-kilometer radar, which is obviously a little bit weaker than its Tier 9 counterpart, or how it was at Tier 9. But the enemy tribe is moving in as well, and he is going to be our focus. Now one nice thing, as many people are well aware, the USN cruisers have very high arcing shells, which does allow it to get over islands relatively easy, but does mean you do have to provide a lot of lead. Now unfortunately the Baltimore still has some of the heavy AP that a lot later, especially the Tier 9 and 10, Des Moines and Buffalo, they have the heavy, super heavy AP, which can deal fairly significant amount of damage, but this Chapayev is going to go down. Now the reload rate on the Baltimore guns is 10 seconds, which is, well, it does kind of feel like a lifetime compared to, say, the Cleveland, and well, actually Cleveland's pretty much the better of the two, I would almost say. But granted, the Baltimore does run 203mm, which makes it very potent to use its AP. Not saying that Cleveland can't, but the Cleveland does run 152mm, and those shells have a tendency to break, including the HE shells. Now the 203 deal a lot more damage. They can citadel more targets, more heavily armored targets, but the reload rate can be aggravating, to say the very least. But being in a Baltimore, this kind of style of play is what you're going to be expecting to do a lot. Now the AA on the gun is not bad, does have defensive fire. The captain on this Baltimore is not particularly far gone, it's only a 10-point captain, so your AA can be buffed, especially if you get advanced firing training, to go out usually around 6 to 6.5 kilometers, which is a very nice benefit because, once again, you do have defensive fire, and you can definitely shoot down those planes. Now the AA is not as good as it used to be. It has obviously been reduced just due to the fact it is a lower tier, and the health is something else you need to keep in mind. The health is, it's low, and your armor's not that great, so you really do need to be well aware of your situation and your positioning, because if you don't, you will get blapped relatively easy. And, well, unfortunately this Akazuki and this Harikaze are having a bit of a issue, because Once again, there's a lot of radar in this game, and this Harikaze is trying to reverse out of there as quick as possible. We are currently being radared. There are a couple ships to our left. I don't want to particularly move out unless I really need to, because I don't want to get caught on the side. But now we're going to focus down this Akatsuki as quickly as possible. But unfortunately our radar has ran out, and that's one thing to keep in mind. Your radar is short range, short duration, that it won't last particularly long. Now you can obviously get it buffed with the special upgrade consumable, or special upgrade that would increase the duration, but unless you're really planning on keeping it, keeping this Baltimore, I would not recommend it. If you're just grinding through, this radar is sufficient enough. Now our team, you know, at the moment we're fairly tied with the enemy team. We obviously have a ship increase. Well, we did have a ship increase. Unfortunately, the Minotaur just got deleted by the secondaries of the Kurfürst, and that Kurfürst of course gets away with only 4,563. Can someone please take him out? No, really, this Kurfürst is in fact going to get away, which is slightly aggravating. Now unfortunately for us, we're not able to get around to actually deal with that Cleveland, but we might get some shots off on the Akatsuki. It does look like the Kurfürst did go down, but yeah, unfortunately we don't have HE. Now, one nice thing about the Baltimore is she does have a nice turning circle radius, so you're able to get the ship turned relatively easily. And the speed on the Baltimore is fairly decent. With speed flags, it can get up around 34 knots, which is beneficial because it does mean that you can get moving and into a new position with relative ease. Now the detection on the Baltimore is actually not that bad. It is 9.7 kilometers. The radar is 9 kilometers. So you do have about 700 meters of a buffer between when you are detected and when your radar will in fact actually reach target. So do keep that in mind. If you are spotted, there is a possibility that the DD is not in fact within your radar range, so you can't always rely on the possibility that it would actually do it. And any good DD captain can in fact will in fact stay away from you, just because obviously they don't want to be deleted. Harikaze is currently hiding behind the island. And one nice thing about the shells on the USN cruiser line is they kind of arc, and we still get the kill on the Harikaze, and that is one less destroyer. Akatsuki is just sitting broadside, doesn't seem like he has a care in the world, and boom, 2,000 off his health, and decides to start pulling away. Now unfortunately for this team, they're essentially losing C. They're starting to conglomerate in the very northern section of B and leaving essentially this Akatsuki alone. Now unfortunately for us, our Akatsuki is a little bit tied up, and well, he's gonna have issues with his connection here in a moment, but he's still trying to secure C. Now this Akatsuki makes a interesting choice. He decides to pop out, which is not something I would recommend, for considering there's a Baltimore, Akatsuki, and a kid. Now would I say the Baltimore is a strong ship? If I would say she's situational, just as almost any USN cruisers are. They are very situational in the aspect of, if it is depending on what map it has, will depend on how well it can do. Now obviously situations can change, but for the most part USN cruisers do really rely on islands just to ensure that they are able to survive. Now we do know there was a Minotaur. He did drop this smoke screen, and well, I'm gonna bet he's probably gonna come from that direction. Now, unfortunately, we don't see one, so we're in fact going to open up on this Cleveland. Now, this is a situation that I kind of regret. Probably should have just focused on the potential of getting that Minotaur, because I just switched over to HE, and oh, lo and behold, there is a Minotaur. Now, watch how quickly that Minotaur can just chunk you for damage. But it's a really good idea to get away from there as quickly as possible, because you can see he nearly took off half our health right there. More than likely he is going to be dropping torpedoes. But unfortunately for this Neptune, well, even at this range, even with the arcing of the shells, the AP on the Baltimore will in fact Citadel Neptune's no problem. And I know it is a Neptune, and that doesn't really mean all too much. But it's still fun to Citadel a Neptune that doesn't really decide to do anything about being Citadeled until it's like far too late. There we just chunked him again for about 10,000 points of damage. It does look like we did tick him off a little bit, and he is in fact starting to turn in. But we can still let loose the AP downrange. And unfortunately for us, well, he does decide to turn in, and this is something you definitely need to keep in mind. If a Neptune or Baltimore turns in at you, switch over to HE, because you're going to deal a lot more damage against him. But with the super heavy AP that the Baltimore does have, we can still get Citadels on that Neptune, even at a slight angle. So we do finish off the enemy Neptune, and the enemy team is very low on ships, including this Masashi that is starting to decide to push in, but we don't know where that Minotaur is. Minotaur is going to be a problem. I am expecting him to be right kind of where he left off, but if he is any decent captain, he will in fact have moved by now, and that's something I wish I did have my radar. Now, unfortunately, this captain on this Baltimore doesn't have superintendent. I don't think. Pretty certain it doesn't. But that additional radar is always very beneficial for spotting, but you really do have to decide on when in fact you are going to be popping that radar, because you don't want to use it and it be of no use. And in this case, it would be nice to know with that Minotaur, but then again, the Minotaur decides to show up and starts opening up. So the Baltimore, I don't much care for it. It's just my personal opinion. I'm not an overly big fan of the Baltimore. Even at tier 8, she does struggle because obviously she doesn't have that heal. Her guns deal decent damage. I mean, the guns are decent. The reload rate isn't the greatest in the world, but it is a heavy cruiser, and it doesn't have autoloaders like the Des Moines. So, I mean, there is that you do have to keep in mind. AA is good. Turning circle radius is decent. Rudder shift time is decent. And I would probably recommend having the upgrade on the rudder shift time, just to ensure that you can at least try to be a little bit nimble, especially if you are out in open water, which not very often you want to be. And fortunately for us, the Minotaur does go down. So that is pretty much going to be it for this battle. Not a bad game, not overly impressive as far as damage, but a good demonstration of kind of how you want to be playing the Baltimore. She will struggle against obviously higher tiers, especially her own tier 10 counterpart. So always keep that in mind. Obviously the Des Moines is going to be the far superior of the two, but with this is actually going to be it for this battle. All that's left is that Akizuki and Alsace, and we have won on points. So, not a bad battle. So, our team did earn a victory. We brought home 355,669. We did about 90k points of damage, which is not bad. 7 citadels is always nice to see. 2 kills, 88 shell hits. And, like I said, this battle really is going to be a good demonstration on how you should be playing the Baltimore focusing on leapfrogging to island, providing support for your destroyers with that radar, as well as providing potential damage against enemy cruisers with the AP, and causing fires with battleships. So overall, not a bad battle, but as far as the Baltimore concerned, I'm just not a big fan of it. I mean, she is a good cruiser, don't get me wrong. She can and is at times a powerful cruiser, but since she was reduced at tier 8, she is now officially bottom tier, which can be very, very frustrating when you are going to be up tiered to tier 10. Now, fortunately, this battle was in fact a light tier 10 battle, so it wasn't the worst experience in the world, but being top tier, she is going to be quite impressive. She is going to be obviously a very major threat to enemy destroyers and even potentially cruisers and battleships. With that radar is very, very devastating, and Wargaming just really decides radar just makes a ship very powerful, and it can. But anyways, this is going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you saw, hit the like and subscribe button. You guys have a great and fantastic day. Zaijian.